All right, this is the fun part, the moment of truth, seeing if we're actually working or not. We will find out soon enough here. I've had a couple gaps here and there, but I think we are. Wait for it, Nolan. We are now live. So there we go. Looks
What's
like we
happening?
looks like we made it here. So I will now get the tweet going here, and we will hit our Slack chat and just let everybody know that we're doing this here. Let's see.
Looks like we made it after all.
This is the part that Josh is way better at because he has
Is
done a
this
million of
was that
these.
Laverne and Shirley?
Yeah. Well, that was one of the songs from there, or not? They did do it on that show, but it wasn't from that show. All right.
Nice, nice.
So how's your last couple hockey days been?
Oh, pretty good, pretty good. I was in contention last night. I was thinking I was like tied for top three in the 20 max last night for a while, and then just kind of fell apart at the end there. It was pretty tight though. I think a lot of teams said Boston won, and then there wasn't really like one stack that stood out. Philly three was kind of the line that did it last night. Konechny had like 8 shots, so I think Homer Cleese was pretty smart when he said not to pair Halak with Boston, or like that was a nice way to get some leverage on your Boston one stacks. I was not smart enough to do that, so Halak was kind of meh. Didn't really do too much. So you would have been better off with one of these other goalies. But yeah, back at her tonight. We got a same style usual slate. Even though I'm sure some people will be off playing some baseball tonight, but that's all right. Oh, I guess like are all the games today for
There's
baseball? Are they all on
They're
um,
all going
day
off in the
games?
next 10 minutes, with the exception of the Mariners and Boston, which is 7 o'clock. So
Seven
there's
o'clock
only
in like Taiwan or something?
no. It's in. It must be in Seattle.
That's weird. Like, is that a tradition in baseball? Just
No,
starting.
this is the first year they've ever done this. So what they did this year is instead of, they always have done a one Sunday night game,
Mhm.
and then that Monday most everybody plays, and then occasionally from time to time they'll start a series in Japan or Australia or wherever it is. This year they happened to do one in Japan a week ago, when that was the Mariners in Oakland, and they played a 2-game series. And then this year, for the first time ever, they said, or I say the first time ever, for the first time in about 25 or 30 years, since the
Mhm.
advent of ESPN Sunday Night Baseball, they started opening day on a weekday, with most of the teams going in the afternoon. And the reason they do most of them in the afternoon is it's still kind of cold across the country. No guarantee of good weather.
That makes sense. It is a pretty crazy time of year for baseball, right? Lots of rainouts, lots of lots of long sleeve turtlenecks.
It's like Canada.
Exactly.
All right,
What
I'm
you gonna
just
be playing a little NHL tonight?
I am, of course. Here, let me get this tweet out, and then we can get going. Yeah, I've of course, anytime I'm on a show, I'm definitely playing, focusing on the tiers, which have been reasonable for me. I'm sort of treading water, but the other night I was pretty
Yeah.
close to having a nice one. And then I've got about 40 lineups in the classic mode. And I'm just playing on DraftKings because I did golf this morning. I've done 3 slates of baseball. I've got NBA tonight. I've done an
So
NBA
much,
article.
right?
I've
Like,
done a baseball article. We're doing the hockey show. Oh, and I'm playing college basketball. Shout out to
oh
Osmore's
yeah, college
projections.
basketball. Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah,
It's like the second craziest time of the year. It's like October, sort of when everything else, and then this is like the second craziest time. So it's a good time of year. Good sports time. So hopefully there's still a few people playing some NHL tonight, and we'll get on it and make some money to pad our college basketball winnings that we know are coming. So
that yeah, I want to jump in on the fun. So I went and I just because so the basketball starts at 7. Pardon me, college basketball at 7:09 Eastern tonight. So I went
yeah,
in and I just saved a couple in the $3, the $2, the $1, and I'm gonna mix and match and see what happens here.
nice, nice. I like it. It's gonna be. We should be in for some good basketball for sure. Yeah, we got a disappointing start here. We really wanted to play this new winger on Buffalo One, but he's not in the player pool. So uh, we're we're at a disadvantage here. I would have. He's a really good AHLer and averaging a point a game. He's got a great shot. Would have been on the power play, but oh well.
So no Victor Olofsson is what you're saying.
Yeah, no Victor Olofsson. I haven't checked FanDuel, but I don't think he's in the FanDuel player pool. So yeah, in this slate we got a nice total here for the Sabres, which I found a little surprising, to be honest. 3.3 to 2.6. Sabres are banged up right now. We have Rasmus Ristolainen is out tonight, as well as their former second-line center, Evan Rodriguez. So Casey Middlestad's going to move up to the second line to skate with Skinner and Pominville. And then we have Olofsson, who is 60 points in 64 games. He's going to probably play on that power play one alongside Rasmus Dahlin. Just has an amazing shot. And then, yeah, just sort of trickles down the rest of it. And then on the other side of things, we have a really interesting, highly graded matchup for Detroit. Detroit won anyways. Both Osimo and Jake's rankings really like Detroit tonight. So I know, like, when I originally crunched with Jake's projections, Detroit one came up in like 80% of my lineups. So that's before I put any filter ons. And then Osimo is the only double A graded line of the night is Detroit one. So yeah, Buffalo doesn't have a lot to play for here. Detroit one's numbers are just insane. I'm going to have a lot of them tonight, but I could also understand if you like the other side of this game, because Detroit gives up a lot of chances. They're third worst in high danger chances against over their last 10 games. And second worst in scoring chances against over the last 10, second only to the Senators in the NHL. So both sides of this game are intriguing. I hope Detroit one goes overlooked, though.
All right. With that, we do have. So I'm seeing Linus Ullmark in some rankings across the various industry sites here, and he does have we're with the team anyway. He does have a minus 150 money line, which is not the highest on the night, but it's not horrible either. A BB rating on DraftKings from Osmos projections. It was funny. Josh and I were doing the morning show today, and we were talking about a couple different teams where it's like, all right, guys, get ready, because we're going to recommend the hitters and we're going to recommend the pitcher here. So wow. It can be a little volatile.
Go either way.
And that sort of feels like what this particular one is here.
The like Milwaukee game or something.
I'm blanking on it. Chicago. It was Chicago White Sox.
Nice.
We'll see. Going against the Kansas City Royals. Now, with this game here being in Buffalo, etc., are you going to go to, wait for it, Buffalo 2?
Nice. Yeah, so I think I'll probably, I actually prefer Buffalo 1 here, just because you see, it's tough. You can't get a full Buffalo 1 stack, I guess. So never mind. I take that back. You can do, we have some interesting options. Osimo has been experimenting with a 3-2-1 stack recently in some of these slates, and we'll get to it a little bit later, but there are some interesting spots where that could be viable tonight, and this is one of them. Eichel and Reinhart, because you can't add that third stack, so you can kind of pair them with a full stack and then another player. Gives you a slightly probably more optimal lineup, and maybe some lineup differentiation as well. I'm not super high on Buffalo 2 here, so I would go either Eichel, Reinhart, or I would move over to Detroit 1.
All right. Anything else that you'd like to bring up from this first game here? Because we have 8 on the slate tonight.
Yeah, I think Rasmus Dahlin is in a nice spot with all these defensemen injured. Jake McCabe, Zach Bogosian, and Ristolainen out for the Sabres. That's going to mean extra minutes for some of these other guys. So my guy who I've been recommending for a while, Lawrence Palut, has some nice offensive upside. He's a point a gamer in the AHL, which is pretty impressive for a defenseman. I think he's going to be on the top pairing with Rasmus Dahlin. So both of those guys are going to get some extra. Oh, no, sorry. He's with Brendan Montour. So Brendan Montour, Palut, and Dahlin are all going to get some extra minutes tonight. I think all three are viable. Probably Dahlin's my favorite play of the bunch, but he'll be popular. So if you want to pivot and go to a guy that often gets overlooked, Brendan Montour is one to take a look at. Big minutes, decent shot totals, always projects well in Jake's rankings for the most part. So yeah, all three of those guys. If you need a Bearman guy though, Palut is definitely an option.
All right, I did actually make the effort to put him in a couple lineups on Tuesday, so I will be doing the same.
Awesome. Today. Yeah, Yeah, I mean, usually like we try to pay up a D as much as possible, but occasionally just get that really nice defenseman that you or that nice lineup with two highly two expensive lines, and you just kind of want to fit that cheap defenseman. And this is the kind of slate where we do have a few of those options. So we will get into those a little later as we go along.
All right, let's continue moving here. We've got my Washington Capitals on the home and home with the Carolina Hurricanes here. Again, by obligation, I'm going to have to mention Washington 1 and 2 because they're consolidating the top 6 nicely here. On the other side, I'm going back to Carolina 1 for my real official favorite line. That would be the Aho Williams Niederreiter line. So that is my amazing analysis here. Kurt McElhinney, Kurt McElhinney is coming in super cheap, risky spot, but Washington, they do take some shots here. Is that let's start off with or dismiss him quickly? But what do you think of McElhinney?
Yeah, no, I'm totally like that price point is really cheap for him. So the thing is, like, Washington's not like they're good at shot generation, but they're not like they're still bottom third in the league, and they have like a pretty high overall high danger and scoring chance conversion rate. So that's not an ideal recipe for success. You generally don't target goalies against them. That being said, like because McElhinney's price is so cheap, I will get to some lineups with him, just pairing him up with Carolina 2 or Carolina 1 for sure. Yeah, I agree with your take though. Like Carolina 1 is in a great spot tonight. They will likely match up with Washington 1, who is bottom 5 on this slate in terms of scoring chances against. And then, they will probably line up against Washington 2. Carolina 2 will probably get a hard match against the Ovechkin, Backstrom, Wilson line, and that line is also both those lines are bottom 10 on the slate in scoring chances against. So we have some pretty good matchups here. Carolina 2's numbers are gaudy. I think Vots wrote them up today. Vots or Wassel, I can't remember.
Wassel was on it today.
Wassel was on the stacks, so he wrote them up today and just kind of highlighted some of their numbers, and they are amazing. This is kind of like old school Carolina, just chance generation, Corsi 4, not converting though. So this is like the Carolina that we knew and loved from earlier on in the season. But that line is so cheap that you can fit them in as a filler stack, and they get a plus matchup tonight going up against one of the worst defensive lines in the league. And then one of my other points here is just TJ Oshie is a game time decision. He's listed as a game time decision, I think, on both sites. So in terms of a leverage spot here, this is an interesting way to attack this game. It's not a great matchup because Carolina's offensive numbers by their 2 top lines are so good. But Oshie and the Caps second line will probably get no ownership tonight just as a result of him being a late call. So I don't know if we have an update on that yet, but last time I checked, we didn't. So we probably won't know till line rushes. The last time Oshie was in as a game time decision, I think he scored 2 goals or something. So it's entirely possible that happens again. You can just throw like 1 lineup, 2 lineups in if you're MMEing, and then you're overweight on the field anyways, right? So don't mind that. And then on the D side of things, we have Kempny is out for the Capitals. Christian Juice, whose father played in like the 80s. You might remember him. His dad was Pear Juice.
Ah, yes.
Just on the all-time name team. I always like to bring that up. He's playing with Carlson. Bare minimum, probably going to get some increased ice time, 15 to 20 minutes or so. Really, really low upside play there. But, there are other spots I would like to go. But, hey, Bearman defenseman, sometimes you gotta throw a few guys in that are low owned in some higher or situations where they got a little more upside. So
all right. Plus he's Swedish, so of course they play hockey there too. It's always
they do play hockey there. We are well accustomed to that in Vancouver.
I've got one thing I was looking at, just checking it. It's and I saw it on 2 different sites. Illness for Oshie. He's going to be a game time decision. So you're right. We'll have to wait till line rushes probably.
Oh, Jake's in the chat here. Yeah, Carolina 1. Number 1 top line for Jake and Jake's projections today. I know you crunch them, you get a lot of them. So we'll be loading up on Carolina 1. Anytime Jake's on Carolina 1, that's a good reason to get on Carolina 1 too. So
Carolina won. The magic word burns. We're gonna need Pute here, and then
Carolina won and Burns. It's the all Jake lineup
yeah,
tonight.
and Juice and Pute to help us out. So there we go.
Yeah, see, I'm here with all the horrible plays that make no sense, that are 0.5% owned. That's what I do. Well,
all right, on to our next one here. We've got the Montreal Canadiens going against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Let me just see what the updated line is here. We've got Columbus minus 150 for their home game for Bob, who is confirmed. We're still waiting to hear about Carey Price. Of course, we're getting down to the wire here, so I've noticed a lot of goalies are not really getting days off if their teams are in the mix, so we'll have to see what happens there. This is one where I was not doing cartwheels. We went into it a little more with Bobrovsky on Tuesday, and I ended up playing a little bit of him with courtesy of the Fantasy Cruncher and projections, and I don't hate going back to him today. Again, this is going to be a price thing for me. Plus, he popped on Osimo's value and points grades with a double A. So
double A, yeah.
I
so
don't remember seeing that many goalies with the value and the projections both being A.
I think like Bobrovsky's one of those goalies that's just a streak goalie, and when he starts getting going, you play him when he's hot. And he has 3 shutouts in his last 4 games. If you go back further, he's really only had 1 bad game since the beginning of March, or close to it. So we have a home matchup here. This is a really big game as well for both of these teams who are in the playoff hunt. Montreal is hanging on to that second wild card spot, and they have where the point totals, NHL.com, 80 points, and Columbus has 88 points. So really tight here. This is basically the only chance these two teams are going to have to get in. So it's a must win for Columbus. We're going to have a playoff atmosphere. It's going to be really tight. I don't see any reason why Carey Price wouldn't go tonight unless there's something wrong with him. Like he'll 100% be in here. And then just some notes on the usage last game. The second and third lines for Montreal, they shuffled during the game. So Lehkonen was down on the third line for a bit, and Drouin was up on the second line. So that was about half the time. So you kind of want to watch line rushes for that. I'm sure it will be the same this game, but just keep that into consideration if you're using either one of those lines a fair amount tonight. With the Montreal 2 line has some really nice underlying numbers, so and they won't be owned. But I'm not sure if Lehkonen will continue to stay up there, if they'll move Drouin back to that line where he was most of the season.
Now, I know it's late in the season and such, and we'll see some interesting stuff for playoffs, so this kind of may be helpful to others. How do you go about approaching and determining which lines we're playing together, or better yet, which guys when they shift them up? Is there a particular like game flow box score? I mean, there's several sites that do that for the NBA. How do you find that information for?
Oh, yeah, great question. So first, there are 2 things you can do. First off, you look at Left Wing Lock, which is a great site that gives you the data on how much lines are skating together.
Okay.
So that's where I get the data from, like saying like which teams at 5-on-5 are having the highest rates. And then from there, you can go, if you see something that's a little bit off, you can go look at Shift Chart. Shiftchart.com is another great resource. It gives you kind of matrices to see how much players play together, but it also gives you the like minute by minute breakdown of every single game and every single shift. So you can go through and see which line matched up against which line, which players are playing together, when the shift occurred, whether there was a reason for the shift, there was an injury or something. So it's all just there. It just takes a little bit of time to parse through.
Gotcha. Okay, good to know. Good to know.
Yeah.
On this one, it's kind of funny. So let me frame my words more appropriately. Carey Price gets the old double D rating, but then coming back the other way, Columbus 1 and 2 are only getting a B and then D for value because they're a little bit priced up. Are you intrigued by these guys? Again, we've got them, keyed in on Atkinson, and then line 2 is keyed in on Duchesne, and then they've got a couple discounted guys around them. Is that a direction you would be interested in going tonight, or are you just going to stick with Bobrovsky on his heater?
Yeah, no, I'm probably not going to get to Montreal tonight. I'm going to go. I will have some Bobrovsky. This is one of those situations where I will just plug him in solely based on the fact that Osimo hasn't graded out so well and the fact that he's hot. So occasionally, if I don't have a strong opinion, I'll just defer to what the numbers say. So that's what I'm going to do here. And then like Montreal. I'm just looking at some of the underlying like numbers over the last little bit. Like Montreal's kind of middle of the pack. Columbus is kind of middle of the pack, both in terms of scoring chances and scoring chances against. Sorry, the Montreal two has been one of the best lines in the league over the past 10 games since they've been put together. They're fourth on this slate, so I might throw one Montreal two in there just to get some ownership because it's not going to be owned at all. You won't need much to get overweight on the field or match the weight on the field. And that's about it for this game. I don't know if I'm going to get to too much of Columbus either. I think there are just other spots that I like more. So generally speaking, my plays from this game will just be to like throw in Bobrovsky and probably not correlate him too much as well.
All right, our next game here, we've got the Florida Panthers in Ottawa taking on the Senators. The Panthers are actually slightly favored here. We've got them at minus 140 on the money line. They're just a tick of the projected goals of 6.5 are sliding their way at, pardon me, that's a, yeah, 6.5. Sorry, my math skills. They're at 3.4. There, they get the nice little roundup. We're still waiting to see if Luongo is going to be starting in net. We know that Anders Nilsson is here. This one, for me, nothing overly exciting. Now, I'm sure with a total like this, there's got to be something that you can throw out here for us, Nolan. But for those of us that play at a more cursory level, there's really nothing that has me doing cartwheels. I mean, yeah, Florida one's awesome, but I'm paying through the nose for them on DK. For Barkov and Dodonov and Huberdeau at 7, and 6,200. I mean, that just takes a chunk of the salary cap. How do you approach a particular situation like this where you're allocating such a disproportional amount of your assets into one line?
Yeah, it's tough, right? Like last night when we had a smaller slate with Boston won at home in such a great spot, like I just went all in. I was like 50 or 60% on them, paired them with almost every combo that I could get. In this situation, we have a much larger slate. They're still grading out, like they grade out really well. Anytime you play Ottawa, it's a plus matchup. Ottawa not line matching as much recently. Just looked into it a little bit. They're kind of all over the place. They used to use that Pajot line as a shutdown line, but ever since their coaching change, they're doing that a little less. So yeah, I think like Florida is a perfectly fine play here. I only worry that ownership is going to be very high on Florida because people like to target the Senators, given that they've traded so much of their roster away, and they're just the worst team in the entire NHL in terms of point totals. So yeah, I think the Florida one will be really popular. So given that their price point and given their bad value, I'm probably going to be underweight on the field. But it's one of those scary situations where even if you're underweight, you might want to kick a lineup or two in there just to kind of hedge your bets a little bit, right? And then on the other side of this game, I think I have real trouble with the Senators because they just roll four lines and you have it doesn't seem like one line is going to go off. The top line is probably your best option, but I can see going to any one of these other lines as well. And I'll just look up to see which of these lines is actually doing something here for the Senators. But it looks like basically both Ottawa 1 and Ottawa 2 have some pretty good underlying offensive numbers. 33 scoring chances, 4 per 60, and limited minutes for Ottawa 2, which is decent, not a great sample. And then the top line has 44 minutes in there, averaging 13 high danger chances 4 and 25 scoring chances 4. So pretty respectable numbers from a pretty weak side. I'm happy going with either one of those two lines as a filler stack, and they're probably not going to be very popular either.
Yeah, and good. There's a fair question in chat here, so I want to round this out a little more. It says, this is one of the best games. This is Ray Rock. Two teams that don't play a lot of defense. and subpar goalies. I mean, good God, the goalies are coming in at 3.2 and an 89% save percentage on the season for Longo. Nielsen is at 3.1 and 90.7 for his save percentage. But the prices for someone like me to come in and look at it, it's like, well, I know what I want to play. I want to play, 3 through 5 in Yankee Stadium or the Rockies or whatever. And it's I can see it, but I got to build, 6 other spots on my roster here. And if I'm putting 20 plus thousand on DK to line 1, it's where it gets a little tough. So I should have framed the question a little bit better in how do we prioritize what we want to get from this game? Because it does have one of the highest totals on the night, and it stands out. But how do you, triage, prioritize, pick your platitude, if you will?
I mean, I think like one of the things I've learned this year, like more often than not, I try to trust the projections and the models, and I look to that first, and then you can see like. It's not a scenario where they have both a great points grade and a great value. So it's a good points grade. So you say like, okay, well, so that's going to lessen my exposure to them probably a little bit. And then the fact that people like to target the Senators probably is going to mean high ownership. That just generally, those are kind of 3 reasons why I won't be on them as much. That being said, I think like you're averse to paying up for a top line. I understand that logic, right? Like it's really hard to fit in other lines when you do that. But one of the advantages of paying up for that line is you're fitting in really unique combos. So like last night, my best team was a Boston 1 team, and I just I locked in Boston 1 and I crunched like 20 lineups, and it came out, spit out like one, third, fourth line, second lines. And the best lines were Toronto 4 and Philly 3. And both of those lines were unowned last night. Right. So, you never know what happens. Like on any given slate, a third line can get you 2 goals on a slate of this size. That probably happens more often than not. So if you have that expensive line, it forces you to go down to some of these lesser owned lines, gives you a little bit of leverage on the field, and maybe you'll hit the nuts that game. But in this specific case tonight, I'm not going to have much Florida 1. I'm going to let other people go there, hope that they're up at 15% ownership, and then maybe we'll find some other spots here that are a little bit better and a little bit better value.
All right, let's continue along.
We got to give a little shout out as well to old Tommy Shabbat on the Senators back a couple games ago. He's been lighting it up. 25, 27 minutes a game. He has 5 and 6 DK points since he's been back, 3-4 shots. The Panthers penalty kill is pretty bad, and he's going to see a lot of minutes tonight. So one of my favorite plays on the slate behind probably Burns and Edler is Shabbat tonight. So that's how I'm going to be accessing the offense from this game. But I also don't hate, like, if you want to throw in like a Florida 1 stack, or you can do that as well.
All right. Our next one is the Islanders at the Winnipeg Jets. You've got the Jets here as a bit of a favorite, minus 160 on the money line. 5.5 implied goal total, one of the lower ones on the night, right there with Montreal and Columbus and Los Angeles and Vancouver and St. Louis and the Rangers here. We've got Hillebuck and Greece, who are not yet confirmed, which makes things a little tricky. Of course, we still have a good 3 hours before this game goes off, and 2.5 before tip-off. So we should, before the puck drops. Goodness gracious. I did
yeah, I'm good with that.
Did a NBA podcast last night for this morning, was on the baseball show with Josh this morning. Now I'm doing
it's a lot this time of year. It's a lot.
We're out of control here. In any event, this is another one where not seeing a ton of stuff pop out, but these have some more discounted salaries for our players here, so that means that there's someone that'll probably start to sprinkle in as we generate multi-lineups. If you're looking at one side, let's start with the Islanders. Is there anything in particular you want to call out? News and notes, any changes?
Yeah, so not really much in the way of news and notes for this game. The Islanders are a little bit banged up at forward. They had some new lines last game, and I think they're sticking with the exact same lines. Didn't have a power play at all last game, so I'm guessing the power plays are the same. Didn't see any updates from the beats this morning. So Barzell, Everly, Lee. That's probably my favorite spot to attack this game. And well, actually, on the Islander side, anyways, they actually have some really good numbers together since they've been put together. So I'm just going to pull those up right now. Yeah, they are sixth on this slate, and really, any line combo above 30 minutes, they're the top line in terms of scoring chance generation, high danger chance generation since they've been put together. So, bit of a sneaky spot for them tonight. They're going to get no ownership, probably be like 3 to 5% maximum, if that. And, Winnipeg's been known to give up chances. They'll probably see a lot of Winnipeg 1, maybe some Winnipeg 2. Both those lines have been known to play some high event hockey. So I actually might try and fit in a couple New York Islanders stacks tonight and just sort of hope that to pair them with some chalkier stacks that I'm going to use and maybe hope that they fly a little bit under the radar tonight. And then on the Winnipeg side, my slam dunk home run play tonight. No.
I see what you're doing there. I see what you're doing. We're going to call that the slap shot play of the night. Keep it in the right sport.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of am a little bit interested in Winnipeg tonight. Not a great total. Again, not a great value. New York Islanders have the best goals against average in the league. They've regressed a little bit of late, but they're starting to get it back again. But Winnipeg at home, a little bit different beast. They have some of the most pronounced home road splits in the NHL. Besides, it's them and Boston and maybe a couple other teams right at the top. So I'm gonna try and get overweight on Winnipeg 1 tonight and sort of hope that maybe the Islanders struggles continue a little bit and that they go overlooked tonight. I don't really have any statistical backup to like give this to say that this is a good play. I just maybe it's more of a hunch than anything, but I think if you want to get a little bit off some of these more higher owned stacks tonight, Winnipeg 1 might not be a bad place to go.
All right, I'm marking that one down because I trust in Nolan. All right.
Like it.
Any of the discount dandies here at all for you? Because Brian Little, calling out my my favorite, having played season long hockey forever. He was started out as a streamer, finally broke through. Oh, good God, would that be with the Atlanta Thrashers, who are no longer
that's right,
even a team anymore?
Is that right?
But that's that Brian Little. It's not his kid or something. But he's someone where you see the names pop at such a cheap discount on the third line, etc. Is that anybody that still has a little something left in the tank? I'd say Cal Clutterbuck, but he's on line 4, so that hurts.
Hey, that Islanders line 4 is the best fourth line in hockey. So I mean, in terms of fantasy hockey, anyways, they sometimes will lead the team in 5-on-5 ice time. So I think people are onto that now. But it used to be that you could kind of sneakily get some New York Islanders 4 shares and large GPPs, and no one would be on them. But I don't know about Brian Little. I don't know about that line. I mean, we earlier on in the year, Winnipeg 3, before they made the addition of Hayes and switched things around, got rid of Lemieux, and I don't even know where Perreault is these days, but I have not actually used them in a long time. The thing about Little is he doesn't really shoot a lot. He's the guy that got left off even when he was centering the second line. So it's nothing more than a punt, and I wouldn't really have any more than 1 or 2 shares of them in your MME if you want to go that way. That's kind of like the scenario where I talked about, where you're paying up for like one line and a high price defenseman, and then you want some really cheap filler line in there. You're probably going to want to look to a line like Winnipeg 3, but not too much Winnipeg 3 tonight. Don't get carried away. They're not Boston 2.
All right, I was just looking there to see when Atlanta moved to Winnipeg. 2011. Was it really that long ago?
Oh my! I see. For me, it feels like longer than that. That's crazy. Yeah. So this line, 17 scoring chances 4 and 7 high danger chances 4. Those are bad numbers since they've been put together. Really bad. So I will probably have 0 of them today.
All right.
But you won't be. You'll be flying solo if you got them. So you never know.
Now, how about the goalies in this one? We have one of the lower, tied for the three lowest scoring matchups this evening. Would you, if Connor is in, would you go to him?
Yeah, I don't see why not. If I were to use Connor Hellebuck, it would just be in some Winnipeg one stack. So if I have Winnipeg one and I can correlate with him, yeah, I don't have a problem doing that at all. Winnipeg gives up a fair amount of shots. Just looking here, yeah, they give up the fifth most shots in the league. So, and then shots per game. The Islanders are near the bottom though, so probably going to see about 30 shots this game. If you get, let's say, one or two, he could be decent. He's been hot lately, so I have no problem with that play at all.
All right, I see that the Atlanta Flames are now getting a shout out in chat. Was that way back in the WHL, or was that?
I think the Atlanta Flames moved from somewhere else, like Colorado, maybe. Were they the Colorado Rockies? National League.
I don't remember.
Yeah,
because I mean the Colorado Rockies were not just the baseball team; they borrowed that name. So
yeah, they relocated to Calgary from Atlanta, I guess. So maybe that's all I'm thinking of. And they were just an AHL team. Yeah, that's right. 72 to 1980 WHA.
That's way back in the
going back to those Gordie Howe Hartford Whaler days.
Well, that's what I was going to say. We got to have the Gordie Howe hat trick because we didn't mention that on any of the first two shows we were.
That doesn't happen anymore. That's got to be it happens once a season, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, such a shame. Such a shame. Let's see here. But so outside of maybe Connor, if he's in,
Yeah, and then Winnipeg 2 is a really good value as well. They're priced down. They're one of those stacks that's sort of not a filler stack, but not a top line, sort of 15K on DK. So you kind of pair them with another mid-tier stack and get yourself one good defenseman if you want to go that route. I don't think that's a bad move either. But yeah, this probably realistically speaking, is probably going to be a pretty low event game and a pretty low scoring game, but more of a hunch than anything. Winnipeg won, just starting to get their mojo back a little bit. Islanders struggling a little bit more than I think the public perceives that they are. So just a hunch, but hey, you never know.
All right, let's continue moving here. We're now into the 9 o'clock game. We've got the Dallas Stars up in Edmonton taking on the Oilers. Another one of our low scoring totals here. You've got some goalie love that we could potentially get. You've got, is it Khudobin?
Yeah.
Khudobin and Koskin, who are at opposite ends of the pricing spectrum here on DraftKings, but an interesting matchup here. I just want to pull up the odds because they're actually even money right now.
Is that right?
Yeah. It's minus 105 and minus 115. So that means it's a pick 'em at that point, as evidenced by their even split here, essentially on their 5.5 goals. This is one where I am not sure what to do. I mean, it was funny because you've got McDavid, so you always, McDavid, one of the best guys in the league, excellent line there. You mentioned that Hopkins in our last show had been moving up and down to line one on occasion. Did that happen to occur in the last game?
No, they kept that line together. Yeah, it's kind of like one of those situations where they monitor. But one of the things, usually they're pretty good about keeping that line together once they start that line. It's just that they kind of shift it game to game. They'll move Nugent Hopkins up there. So I would expect these lines to be the same tonight. Yeah, I'm kind of off Edmonton. I mean, just a name cachet alone, McDavid always carries some ownership. You have a home matchup, and people just love to use him. So I would expect that he's going to be fairly highly owned, or even though it's not a great matchup. Flip side is Dallas Stars on back-to-backs, starting their backup goaltender, but they've just been really good defensively this year, and especially recently. So they are allowing the 5th least scoring chances against in the NHL over the past 10 games. In terms of high danger chances, they're a little bit worse than that. They're 6th, but those are really good numbers at all strengths. They tend to slow it down and play a fairly defensive game. So I'm not getting to much Oilers tonight. I know Jake's projections weren't getting to much Oilers tonight. I think that Osimo has them graded pretty well though, with an A grade and a B value. So I think there's probably worse plays on the board than them, and they always have the potential to go off. So, and then on the other side of things, yeah, this Ben Seguin line is still fairly reasonably priced. Coming off back to backs though Seguin, like I don't know what happened. He got like a $2,000 price increase from last night or something, or $1,000, which is crazy. So I might be inclined to target Dallas one here a little bit. The Edmonton's top line, when they have I lost it in my stats here. Usually, when they have McDavid, they're usually pretty bad defensive line as well, and I would expect that McDavid will see a lot of Seguin tonight. So, or at least the top two. So, you could probably really get to some Dallas one who've been hot lately in a plus matchup, even though they've got a low total. I don't hate that play either, but again, there are just better lines on the board.
Right, I'm just checking it out. So you can get Draisaitl, McDavid, and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins on the tiers game. They're the three Oilers who are represented, and fortunately you can get all three because they're at tier 1, 3, and 8 respectively there. So you know that's where I like to go because it's the puzzle within the puzzle. I don't have to worry as much about the salary cap here, but you have to start making some tough decisions because a lot of times they'll take some of the really good top lines and they'll put two guys on the top line in the same tier, so you can't stack them, and you got to figure out what you want to do. Yeah. But you can play around here and figure stuff out. And what I've found my best way of doing it is, and you can download the CSV from DraftKings and filter on it, but I like downloading it out of the Fantasy Cruncher, since that's what I utilize to make those lineups here. And it's you don't have to tear your hair out as much. So basically what I do for my steps is I download that, I highlight the guys that are the lines that I can get some synergy with, and then I start to figure out who can I play, who's on the same tiers. If I want to try to stack two lines, invariably of the handful of guys that are in there, they're on the same tier or whatever, so you have to make some choices and muck around with it a little bit. But there's a lot of strategy in it, and I found it kind of fun because unlike the other sports where generally it's 6 people on a tier, you get 8 for hockey. And with 8, there's a whole lot of additional stuff you've really got to think about, and it provides for a lot more differentiation. That one.
Absolutely. That's kind of fun. Like, and I definitely am getting into the tiers a little bit. So, like, I think it's a great way to introduce yourself to the sport if you haven't done it, or to DFS hockey. And then you're probably like, the pros just aren't bothering as much with tiers, so you're going to get.
There's no big prize pools really. So.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a perfect way to get started, and it's kind of like it's a little bit safe, right? You're not.
Yes.
Yeah. So, so if you're targeting that Edmonton one line in your tiers tonight, Edmonton one and then Nugent Hopkins, which is basically the power play one. It's a bad spot for them, unfortunately. Right. Like, Dallas has been really good on the penalty kill all season. They don't take a lot of penalties over the last 10 games. They're 4th in the league, least amount of penalty time on ice, and then top 5 in the league in scoring chances against. And high danger chances against on their kill. So all the numbers point to that being a bad matchup, but back to backs, backup goaltender Connor McDavid, anything can happen. So if that's a play you like, go for it. I'm going to be underweight tonight, probably won't have much, but I can certainly see the logic behind wanting to play him.
All right, so I'm looking at and again I'm just pushing this because I think it's a fun way to get in there and not get your ass kicked by the Sharks. So it's in the it's a $5 contest. Their biggest one, it's only $4,000 prize pool, but if you've played over $1 million in earnings on DraftKings, you can't be in it. And I'm just scrolling through and looking at the entries in it. You can have up to 28. I've only seen. Okay, there's one person I've seen that has 28. Everybody else that has multiple entries has either 2 or 3, and it's not very many people. So I think it's a lot of people just hand building this stuff and going in there. I like to play in the dollars and the quarters, but just pointing it out there. There's a way that you can get your fix, if you will, and not break the bankroll. And the whole goal is to have fun and not to have to redeposit, in my opinion.
This is true. This is true. Yeah, absolutely. I totally like that. I like that call for sure.
All right. Anything else from our Stars and Oilers?
No. Same thing. Yeah, just not getting much of this game, but yeah, that's all. I just like other spots more.
All right. Let's see. We
All right,
got
let's get my hometown Canucks here. We got Quinn Hughes,
2 games left. Here we go. You've got Jonathan
best
Quick.
defenseman on the slate coming up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who is?
Quinn Hughes. So Canucks top prospect, probably the first or second best defense prospect, depending on who you talk to outside of this side of Cal McCarr on the Avalanche. He's making his NHL debut tonight. If you want to watch some just like Erik Karlsson level highlights, just go YouTube him. He's amazing with the puck. Really short, kind of like a Brian Rafalski type, maybe with a little bit more puck skills. So he's going to be on the third pairing in the second power play tonight. I'm going to have some ownership just because you got it. It's his debut. He's $2,500, but there are probably a lot of people like me in that boat as well. On the Canucks side of things, they shuffled lines a lot last game. So on the second line, Pettersson and Besser got 3 different line mates. It was Levo, it was Jake Virtanen, and it was Sven Baertschi also got time on that line. So this is what I was talking about. If you wanted to do one of these 3-2-1 stacks tonight, you could go Besser and Pettersson and then hope that that third winger just gets shuffled as well. That's a viable strategy, I think, as well, because that winger is always usually a weaker player than those two. On the other side of things, LA, I don't know, did they play last night? No, 2 nights ago, I think, in LA, or in Calgary. LA won, intriguing. They get a lot of ice time. Their ice time was down last game, but recently they've been getting a lot, sort of in that 25 to 30% share, which is what you want to see out of a top line. And then their second line has some really good underlying numbers, which is surprising given that it's LA and that entire team sucks. But since they've been put together, I'm just going to look up their numbers here. I'm so slow with these spreadsheets sometimes. So 30 scoring chances, 4 per 60, which is very respectable for that, and 14 high danger chances, 4 per 60, also very respectable, near the upper tier of this slate for a very cheap price. And they will get to go up against some of the Oilers' depth tonight. So I know that line, the Kempe, Grundstrom, and Toffoli line, has been popping on some of the projections, just like as a filler stack for Jake for quite a while now. So I'm just gonna trust the projections and get a few shares of them in as well.
All right, we've got, let's see, with regards to this, Quick got just destroyed in the last game. He gave up 5 goals. He had 6 saves.
Is that right?
Times. Yeah.
What game was that? Oilers?
That was the Oilers. What was that?
Yeah,
it was the Oilers because that was when Nugent Hopkins had the hat trick and
right. Okay,
and,
yeah. So we got
maybe a goal and 3 assists or something.
Starting tonight, or is it?
It's unconfirmed yet. We don't know. It almost feels like he may not.
Yeah, I would actually think it's probably going to be Campbell. They just seem to be going to him a lot lately, and he's been really good. So outside of that Oilers game where I think he must have come in, he's been, well, okay, maybe I'm exaggerating. He's been acceptable, but he has 2 shutouts in his last, 3 shutouts in his last 6 games. So one of those situations where when the goalies are confirmed late, you're going to be, I don't talk about it enough probably as a leverage point, but if you've got a goalie that's going to be confirmed late and in a situation where they, have a shot at a win anyways, it's not like LA is that much worse than Vancouver, you're going to get them at probably 1% ownership every single time because people just don't put those goalies in because they know they're not going to be around their lineups. They know they're not going to make that switch. So if your lineups are drawing dead or you're going to be on top of things, you can kind of throw in Campbell and then just sort of hope maybe he has a one of those shutouts that he's had in the last month, and he's the Nuts goalie on the slate at no ownership. Not a bad strategy when you got some higher owned lines and you want to differentiate.
All right, let's see.
Guzzling like young Evan Silva here.
What is?
I said I'm guzzling like a young Evan Silva here. I got my giant football mug. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, no, I see it.
He's got that huge jug every time.
All right.
Yeah, so that's one going. On the other side here, Edler as well grades out really well. Probably the second most exposed defenseman for me tonight. I'm going to be around 40% on him. You can pair him up. He gets a lot of ice time with Horvat if you want to do some unique stacking. The Vancouver one line doesn't grade out very well, but you could probably pair him up with the second line too, and hope for some power play correlation. And throw some Quinn Hughes in there. He might surprise you. He might get 10 to 15 minutes in power play 2 time for an offensively talented player. Not the worst scenario in the world.
And then line 4, Jay Beagle, former longtime Washington Capital.
I hate Jay Beagle so much.
Oh, why? Because he's on your team now?
No, because they signed him to like a 7-year, $84 million extension. Every other team in the league is lining up superstars and paying their fourth line $500,000 a year, and we're prioritizing our bottom 6 forwards. It's pretty smart hockey team building going on.
Wait, seriously? He's been in the league he's like 30 years old by now.
Yeah, he's like 32, 33. They signed him to a 4-year, $15 million deal in the summer. So he's already a below replacement level player. He's going to be making $4 million a year at the age of 37. Like, he's going to be bought out. Everyone knew it. It's just awful. So yeah, with Schaller, I mean, Vertanen can always pop one. He just scores out of nowhere sometimes. So if Beagle's your thing and you want access to Beagle tonight, like if that's the route you want to go, you slide some Vertanen in and you're good to go.
Oh boy, yeah, he had a few moments, and by moments I mean he happened to be on the ice for some Winter Classic action here and there, along with Eric Fair. But oh, good God! All right.
Oh, Bots is just pointing out in chat here that Hutton is back as well. That's a good point. So Hutton's going to be on the second pairing with Troy Stetcher.
Okay.
So probably big minutes for Hutton as usual. He'll be in that 20 to 25 minute range. Tanev probably still out for them.
Yeah, 3,600, not too shabby there. Moving on down here, we've got our final game. We've got an intriguing one here. You get the hammer. I mean, we've got just 6.5. We could be pushing 7 here. We don't know if Corey Crawford is going to be in net or not, but Martin Jones has been set up here. We've got San Jose 1 and San Jose 2 are popping in a variety of places. I think that is somewhat exciting. If you were going to choose between the two of them, do you have a preference there?
That's like a Sophie's choice. I like having you on here. We're similar ages. We get all these old movie references and like 1970s sports references.
Yes, Sophie's Choice was a long time ago.
Yeah, I like both of them. I like San Jose 1 probably a little more. One note you want to keep aware of maybe is that they did shuffle the line. So right before during line rushes last game, they put Lucas Rattle up on the second line. He actually saw time with the top line as well. So about halfway through that game, they switched Nyquist and him, and Rattle was up on that top line. So this is a situation where I'm going to be monitoring line rushes just to make sure they haven't switched things up again. Same thing, like if you want to do the 3-2-1 stack, you could go Hurdle and Kane or Meyer and Couture, and then leave off these lesser wingers who also might get shuffled. That being said, my number one exposed play here is still going to be friend of the pod and pod favorite Brent Burns, who got 10 shots on net last game, which was just insane. So that's more than I think he's had in his last 5 games total. I'm all over Burns. Probably going to be in 80% of my lineup, something like that. It's a great matchup, great power play matchup. You can stack the Sharks in a number of different ways here, just because the Blackhawks penalty kill is so historically bad. So you could go, you can go San Jose 1 full stacks. You can mix and match some. One player that really graded out well for Osimo that I noticed is Kevin LeBanc. He's on the third line, but he plays on the top power play unit. I'll bet you some pros are going to be stacking LeBanc on with some other with some Sharks stacks as well, just to Sharks power play stacks. So make sure you're not forgetting about LeBanc tonight. Throw him in some lineups. That guy can just pop out of nowhere. pair him with Burns, whatever. And then on the Chicago side, just too expensive for me. Not interested. Probably a pretty good matchup, but I'm going to continue to fade Chicago here. Just their price is so elevated because of that hot month that I'm just going to have to stay off tonight and hope that they don't aren't the nuts line, because they're certainly capable of it.
All right, that is more or less going to wrap things up for us here. We, of course, will be in the Slack chat, and by we, I mean Nolan and Vought will be answering your questions. I will be busily making my NBA lineups, my tiers lineups here, my showdown slate lineup for
oh my
baseball.
God, so much.
And then, oh yeah, why did I register for those college football or college basketball games? That's right, because Osmo does have some nice projections. Now, I believe the projections are behind the paywall, but he has put his rankings in front of the paywall. So, if for those of you,
you got to get on that while it's free. Just one more quick note: I'd be remiss. San Jose won, my favorite play on that slate. If Nyquist picks up on that line, they rank tops on the slate. Scoring chances 4, high danger chances 4. Haven't buried the puck, but I'm all in tonight. Let's go. This is the night for San Jose. So sorry to interrupt there. I just want to make sure I wasn't like wishy-washy on San Jose tonight when they go off and I'm looking like an idiot.
No, that was very strong, very affirmative. And you're gonna have the player minutes remaining until 10:30 Eastern.
Right? You got the hammer. There's nothing better than having a hammer in DFS, right? You want to be coming from behind, not hanging on to a lead.
It is, but I think on enough people, it affects what they actually pick.
Really? Oh yeah. No, I don't let it do that. I just enjoy it more. You know, it's better to win unexpectedly than lose everything unexpectedly.
Yes, that part I agree. Very, very true. All right, with that, gamers, we're going to get on out of here. We do have the NBA deep dive on right about now. We've got Live Before Lock with Fast Eddie Fear and Josh Engelman taking you down the home stretch for NBA. That'll be the last time they're on a pairing. No, we're not getting rid of NBA Live Before Lock. We're going to be running 2 shows. We're going to be running MLB Live Before Lock, and we're turning Eddie loose for some of the smaller slates on a solo show. If it's a bigger show, we'll get one of us to jump on in there with him to help out with the heavy lifting. But it is the most wonderful time of the year. We have the 3 of the 4 major sports all going at once, plus March Madness, plus golf. Good times ahead. With that, you can follow Nolan on Twitter at Nolan _. That would be 2 underscores. Kelly, you can find me at EMACDFS, and of course, it is Osimo _COM. With that, gamers, we'll be back tomorrow, taking you down the home stretch and leading into the weekend with some NHL. Good luck, gamers.